What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And today's video is, again, on this crazy ordeal with Rampage Jackson basically going out and nearly killing Psycho Stu, a professional wrestler in this event in LA not too long ago. And the world is still reeling from that brutal footage that was released where Rampage Jackson hit him 23 times after he was already unconscious. And people are responding, not only fight fans and pro wrestling fans and MMA fans, but also attorneys have been weighing in as well. And this is the pertinent point. By the way, I am an attorney. I'm just not a criminal attorney. I actually don't practice law anymore. I started a business and left the practice of law. Wow, when was that now? So almost 12 years ago. That being said, I'm still a licensed attorney in the state of California, and I think I can weigh in more than most on legal issues, just to give you a general idea. That being said, when it's totally out of your area of expertise to comment on the legality of certain situations or circumstances, you don't have to go out there and make a statement. And that's what this video is about. Prominent people in the MMA world, for some reason, feel the need to go out and comment and weigh in and give their 2 cents when they have huge followings. Sean Strickland and Chael Sonnen in particular. Chael Sonnen's like over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. It goes out and makes these videos. And I want to give my response and reaction to these videos because I find them to be highly irresponsible given the amount of people that watch both of these guys or listen to both of these guys and give them some level of authority. Now, Chael, I will say, I think people are watching him less and less because it's just been called out numerous times for lying. And look, respect to Chael. He fought, he got in there, he did his thing in the UFC. He was a great smack talker. You know, he's doing stuff for ESPN, but I'll be honest, I can't watch him. And this is going to be an perfect example why I can't trust anything he ever says. Number one. Number two, this video is 12 minutes long. You know how long it took me to find a segment that was whatsoever coherent that I could even play and get to his main point? The guy talks in all these different circles and zigzag patterns that just makes it totally illogical and just a bunch of nonsensical craziness. Like, this could have probably been condensed down to a 2-minute video, but this is what happens. This is the par for the course for Chael Sonnen. And it's just so frustrating. Anyways, I found a clip to illustrate his point. So I'm going to show you what the crux of his argument is as to why he thinks people are wrong about Rampage Jackson. It's not attempted murder. So you're going to hear him here, and I'm going to explain why. Again, he doesn't have a legal background. He hasn't even bothered to do any research. He probably just sat down and shot the video without any further investigation. And I find it to be irresponsible. So I'm going to explain exactly what he got wrong right now. Let me first play this clip.
You don't get to decide where you're all of a sudden the smart mark sitting in the front row. You don't get to decide where all of a sudden you're Vince McMahon in gorilla position and you know the difference between a shoot and a work. You just don't get to do that. And I'm sharing not as a way of yelling at you. I'm yelling in front of you. If you're wondering why the police, who are in possession of what you claim to be a premeditated murder, and we have an injury and we have really bad shots on a guy that's down and allowing his body, I'm telling you why the arrest hasn't been made.
Didn't really say anything. Again, I can't even, it's so hard to extract it in his own words, but what he's trying to say is, the fact that, and now it's Wednesday, right? August 27th, an arrest still has not been made, but he's getting this totally wrong. And this is, again, another case of like a million cases where Chael either runs with a false assumption or it's just straight up manufacturing nonsense. For why, I don't know, for clicks, or maybe he thinks it's funny, like a funny troll. But this is a particular case where it's very irresponsible, especially when we have a victim at play here who nearly died, lost the majority of his teeth. I mean, these injuries that are being described in well-respected media publications are horrendous and horrific. So to do something like this, I feel, is highly irresponsible, and just it's crazy. It's terrible. Somebody with this big of following shouldn't be doing that. But let's talk about this notion. I talked about this in a video yesterday. An arrest hasn't been made, therefore you're wondering why. He goes on these other points of being like, you see something on TV, is Al Pacino being arrested for selling cocaine because he was in Scarface? No, just because you see it, it doesn't mean it's a crime. It's like, I talked about this yesterday. One of the things that when we talk about attempted murder, and I heard another attorney talk about this earlier today, saying it's more likely that he's going to get a battery charge as opposed to attempted murder. And that may be, but I could also see the police charging with attempted murder so that they have more wiggle room in terms of a plea bargain agreement if they do try to plead the charges down. But the reason why the arrest has not been made, yes, you have the crime occurring on camera. There's no question as to the severity of the beating, the injuries. It's all right there. But the tricky part here, and this is, I guarantee you, why the police have not made an arrest yet. And I do believe they will make an arrest. So time will tell if I'm correct or wrong on this. But I believe what's happening right now is it's a complicated situation. Just like if it was a death occurring in a boxing ring. If somebody died, you have it on camera, then a guy's not going to get arrested right off the bat. There's going to need to be an investigation, because that's a situation where both people have consented. Consent is a very important word here. Legally is in this case. They have consented to get in and have mutual combat under the guidance of a commission and whatnot. So it's not what the injuries you sustain, or even potentially death, which is a possibility. It's not necessarily a crime unless the death was caused beyond the scope of what was acceptable or what was understood to be acceptable in terms of things that would occur in the ring or the cage or whatnot. For example, if there was a fight, it transpired, and then it ended, and then right after the bell, then injury, strikes were given, or a submission was given that then caused the person to die, they wouldn't necessarily jump in right off the bat and be like, yep, we saw it, boom, arrest is made. They probably have to do an investigation. They'd have to review the footage. They'd have to talk to witnesses. They'd have to talk to different folks and then make a determination. Yes, do we have enough here based on the general scope of what is acceptable within this mutually agreed combat and what we have documented to say that, yep, he went beyond the scope and we have enough to make a charge. They also want to make charges that are going to stick. So they're probably going to, this is a nuanced case where the police aren't just going to make it. I guarantee you, they're not going to make this arrest just on their own. They're probably going to talk to the prosecutor. They're probably going to look at everything. They have a lot of stuff here. We see this all the time. It's not just as though there is somebody that's been injured or harmed and they immediately jump to an arrest. Sometimes there needs to be a bit of a further investigation, even if they feel pretty strongly that an arrest can be made. They just want to get their ducks in a row. Sometimes they'll be surveilling the suspect leading up to the arrest, saying we're probably going to arrest him. We just need a few more days, a little bit more research. So that's what I think is going on. So his point here is a completely moot point. Again, I think it's an irresponsible point that he made. Now, granted, he put this out 2 days ago when there was a lot of less information, but I would hope that we'd actually, with something that is this sensitive, do some proper due diligence. Just watch some other videos, or you also don't have to make a video on this topic if you don't feel comfortable or competent doing so. You don't have to just spew things out just to constantly create content. You can be a little bit responsible or a little bit thoughtful in terms of what you release. I guess it just did get 200,000 views. So, hey, good for you. But to me, I don't know. I don't find any value in that. This is one of the reasons why I can almost never watch Chael's content. I watched this video because I saw so many people respond and react to it. And he's one of the few people that seem to be defending the actions of Rampage Jackson. Now, here's the second thing that I want to talk about. Sean Strickland's statement, again, in the same line as Chael Sonnen, is just complete nonsense. So let's read it, and I'm going to fire back, because it's like all the things that Sean Strickland claims he loves about America and our freedoms and all these things. It's like, what are you talking about here? Because we're going to zoom out, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the implications of this nonsensical statement are. Jackson's kids shouldn't go to jail. So that's what he believes. Now he's going to back it up with this purported rationale. Prison should always be a last resort. What are you talking about? Yeah, prison is so a last resort. So what, we go through different steps before we send somebody to prison? Yeah, I mean, that's built into the legal system, but we follow the letter of the law. That's the society that we've agreed to live in. You live in the U.S. You have to abide by the laws of the United States. When you're in California, you have to abide by the state laws of California. So what you're saying, if you're arguing for some other pathway, you're arguing against the system, the legal system that we have set up. So what are you saying? People maybe shouldn't go to jail. So I'm just zooming out and telling you what the implications of the statement are. But let's go further. So he's going anecdotal here. I was arrested at 19 for two felony GBIs. I don't know what that. I would have spent 5 to 6 years in prison if the DA had its way. After 6 years in the cell, coming out with nothing, I would have been being indoctrinated with gangs and violence. I guarantee I would have killed someone. So his premise is now being supported by a hypothetical that never happened, claiming that had he gone to prison, he would have come out as a murderer, and therefore Rampage Jackson, even though committing what he perceives to be, I believe, what we all perceive to be a crime, he shouldn't go to jail, because in his case, he thinks hypothetically that had he gone to jail, he would have come out and been a terrible person and murdered people and whatever. Think about this. This is not something that you should be putting out there, because it makes absolutely no sense. Essentially, this argument is basically going against the legal system, saying, right, look at the end, rehabilitation over prison always. Is that what you're advocating for? So now you're saying we shouldn't have a prison and a legal system set up the way it is? Or are you saying this should be an exception for Raja because his dad is Rampage Jackson, he can turn his life around and be a fighter? Like, what are you even talking about? Okay, so now he continues on with this anecdote, which should never be used or rarely be used as any sort of substantive rationale. Instead, I pled and took 100 days jail, a ton of anger management, and a decent amount of victim restitution. How funny is it that he's going back to anger management? I don't think it really worked. After a miserable 2 years of court. Luckily, a lawyer took my case for free. Bottom line is, it's not about the person in prison. It's about who they become when they are out of prison. And I believe if I wasn't offered that deal, I would be dead today. More than likely would have resulted in someone else dead as well. So are you saying nobody should go to jail and we should rehabilitate everyone? What is this argument? It's so poorly thought out that it bothers me. And again, it bothers me because I think most people with a brain are going to read this and realize what I'm realizing, that it makes absolutely no sense. But there are going to be people that are going to listen to this and be like, yeah, Sean Strickland's right. He shouldn't go to jail. Because of what? Because of one anecdotal reason referring to you. But really, if you broadly apply this rationale, you're saying that we should completely drastically change the legal system. And by the way, maybe we should. I don't know if that, but that is a much larger discussion and a much more nuanced consideration. We have to do tons of research. So anyways, my point is, what are you guys talking about? Think a little bit more, especially when you have this massive platform. Stop just spitting stuff out that's nonsensical, especially when you have this crazy situation. Think about what you're saying. You are advocating for this person to get off scot-free of a crime when somebody's sitting in a hospital bed, having trouble recovering from the seriousness of these injuries, losing the majority of their teeth, having multiple facial fractures. And you're saying this with their family reading this. I think it's very irresponsible and completely off base and not thought out. So anyways, there's my 2 cents on both of these reactions. Oh, I should have skipped this to section 2. Sean Strickland argues against legalism. Sorry, I forgot to bring that title up. That was that whole second piece that I was talking about. But anyways, there it is. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you also agree with me that Chael Sonnen and Sean Strickland are totally off base? Do you also agree with me further that you need to be much more responsible when you have such a huge following like both of these guys do in the MMA space and combat sports world? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.